Number 10. Existence of atoms. The existence of atoms was mathematically proven by Albert Einstein in 1905, but the fundamental theory itself traces its roots to Antiquity. At the time, however, it was more in the realm of philosophy, since scientists lacked the knowledge and technology necessary for observation. In the 5th century BC, a Greek philosopher named Leucippus proposed that the visible universe was made of minuscule, indivisible particles. They were referred to as atoms, and the belief was that different atoms created different materials. Leucippus's student Democritus is also credited as a major contributor to the theory. Those who followed this school of thought would be known as Atomists. The theory that everything in existence was made up of tiny particles was also reported in India during the 6th century BC. The religions in the area, such as Buddhism and Hinduism, had various doctrines on how these particles interacted. The concept gradually faded into obscurity and re-emerged in the early 20th century as scientific fact. Understanding atoms has been a linchpin of humanity's scientific progress ever since. It's quite incredible to think that their existence was actually predicted millennia ago. Number 9. Arnold Schoenberg and the number 13. Arnold Schoenberg is often cited as one of the most important and influential composers of the 20th century. He also suffered from triskaidekaphobia, which is an irrational fear of the number 13. According to those who knew this celebrated composer, he feared dying in a year that was a multiple of 13. In 1939, at the time of his 65th birthday, a terrified Schoenberg asked an astrologer to prepare his horoscope. He was told that although the year was dangerous, he'd survive it. However, on his 67th birthday, the composer received a note from an astrologer warning him of impending doom, since the digits of his age totaled his dreaded number. Schoenberg became depressed as he'd only avoided multiples of 13 and hadn't considered adding his age. On Friday the 13th, in July 1951, the composer remained in bed all day, anxious and depressed. According to his wife Gertrude, she was looking at the clock at about 1:45, believing that the worst would soon be over. Gertrude, in a telegram to her sister, detailed what happened next. As she waited for midnight, the doctor called her. Schoenberg died before her eyes, a little before midnight. The astrologer's warning to him had proven true. Those who disregard the composer's death as the result of prediction claim the man had actually been consumed by his superstitious nature. Number 8. Heraclitus, fire and flux. Heraclitus, born in the 6th century BC, was a philosopher who threaded the line between science and mysticism. He's also believed to have made some truly fascinating predictions, which science would understand a few thousand years later. Heraclitus only wrote a single work, called On Nature, of which only a few fragments have survived. He had a fondness for wordplay, which is why his writings are often described as cryptic and paradoxical. Understanding them is further complicated by the fact that much of his work was lost. Various interpretations have labeled Heraclitus a rationalist, a religious thinker, the first genuine philosopher, or a mystic. Regardless, Heraclitus believed that the cosmos was ultimately made of fire. While untrue in a basic sense of the matter, thermodynamics is what keeps the universe going. Change and transformation is fueled quite literally by fire and heat. Heraclitus also believed that everything is in a constant state of flux or change, and that no man steps in the same river twice. Heraclitus predicted that everything flows millennia ago, and in recent times, research in quantum mechanics has begun to prove him right. Number 7. Simpsons predictions. There are a number of predictions made by the writers of the Simpsons animated show which have come true. One of the most often cited predictions is the one made in the year 2000 about President Trump, which came to fruition 17 years later. Simon Singh, who wrote a book called The Simpsons and Their Mathematical Secrets, claims that the show presented an equation predicting the mass of the Higgs boson particle. The elementary particle was theoretically predicted in 1964 by physicist Peter Higgs. In a 1998 episode of The Simpsons, Homer, one of the show's main characters, becomes an inventor. He's presented in front of a blackboard with a complicated equation on it. The existence of the Higgs boson would be proven in 2012 in a $13 billion experiment. In a separate 1998 episode, The Simpsons predicted that Disney would acquire 20th Century Fox, which did actually happen in 2017. The long list of Simpsons predictions that came true also include technological devices, a Nobel Prize laureate, political scandals, and many other global events. Number 6. Scientific predictions of Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla was by all accounts a genius who surpassed the limitations of his era and envisioned technologies that would be of mainstream use nearly a century later. History best remembers Tesla for his contribution in designing the modern alternating current energy supply system. Nevertheless, the inventor was fascinated by the prospect of wireless technology. He believed that it would become widely implemented in domestic management and that numerous transmitters would operate independently without interference. He compared what we now know as a global Wi-Fi network to a huge brain in which all particles are part of a rhythmic whole. Aside from predicting Wi-Fi, Tesla also imagined that everyone in the world would have a device eerily similar to today's smartphone. The inventor claimed it would fit into a vest pocket and enable people who are thousands of miles apart to see and speak to each other. Nikola Tesla also wrote about self-driving cars. Long after his passing, one of the car companies most prominent in the autonomous field was actually named in his honor. Number 5. Predictions of Nostradamus. Conversations on historical predictions typically include the work of 16th century French physician and astrologer Michel de Nostradamus. Better known by his Latinized name, Nostradamus, he published a book in 1555 called The Prophecies. The series of quatrains has been credited as accurate foresight but also criticized as a result of misinterpretation or mistranslation. That being said, some of Nostradamus' writings seem to have come to fruition. One of the most often cited examples is the Great Fire of London. The 3-day blaze consumed the city in 1666. Nostradamus had accurately predicted both the year and the location, more than a century earlier. Another eerie historical prediction is the death of King Henry II of France. Nostradamus describes a fight between two lions, with the younger prevailing and inflicting mortal wounds to the elder's eyes. The king was injured in a friendly jousting match 4 years after Nostradamus' prediction. A younger nobleman splintered his lance and shards broke through the king's visor. He was struck in the eye and succumbed to sepsis several days later. Nostradamus also wrote about a child born of poor parents in West Europe who would seduce a great troop and whose fame would increase towards the east. In a separate quatrain, he wrote that the battle would be against Hister, while also mentioning a child of Germany. This is quite similar to the rise of Hitler and the circumstances of World War II. The name Hister, although similar to the dictator's name, is actually another name for the lower Danube River. Still, some have claimed that it's still a subtle reference to Hitler, since he was born only a few miles from the river. Whether or not Nostradamus truly had the gift of foresight is still debated. The argument from skeptics is that he wrote his alleged prophecies in a manner so vague that their meaning is open to any interpretation. While a number of his prophecies didn't come true, Nostradamus supporters maintain that several have. These include the assassination of JFK, the rise of Napoleon, or the atomic bombs dropped in World War II. Number 4. Titanic. In 1898, writer Morgan Robertson published a novella called Futility, later known as Wreck of the Titan. It was about a fictional ocean liner called Titan, which crashed into the North Atlantic after it struck an iceberg. The plot of the book and even the name of the vessel are eerily similar to the real-life sinking of the RMS Titanic. However, at the time Robert wrote his novella, the Titanic hadn't even been conceptualized. The size, speed, and life-saving equipment of the two liners bear some uncanny resemblances. The Titan was 800 feet long, while the Titanic was 882 feet long. Additionally, both vessels sank in April in the same region and under the same circumstances. In both cases, there weren't enough lifeboats for all the passengers. In the aftermath of the Titanic sinking in 1912, some credited Morgan Robertson as being clairvoyant and capable of precognition. However, the author denied the claims, and experts have credited the similarities to his knowledge of maritime trends and shipbuilding. Number 3. Predictions of Jules Verne. French writer Jules Verne has been called the father of science fiction, and he's one of the most translated authors in the world. His knack for technological prediction has actually inspired a society of true believers known as Vernians. They regard Verne's works as scientific manuals rather than mere fictional writings. For example, in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is perhaps the author's most famous novel, Captain Nemo travels the world's oceans in an electronic submarine called the Nautilus. The novel was first published in 1870, while the first electric submarine was launched more than a decade and a half later. In the same book, Verne also imagined a weapon capable of delivering electronic jolts, which is quite similar to a present-day taser. He also envisioned a trip to the moon a full century before NASA accomplished it. In From Earth to the Moon, Verne also wrote about light-propelled aircraft, technology now known as solar sails. Other aspects in the science fiction classic are also somewhat accurate. Verne wrote about projectile capable of taking people to the moon. He believed that a giant gun would be used in order for them to break through gravity. The return mission involved capsules that landed in the ocean and floated, similar to the capsules actually used by NASA. Today's video was requested by Christian Reed. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Swift, Voltaire, and Martian Moons. Jonathan Swift is one of the most celebrated satirists in the English language, but it seems that the author also made a fascinating prediction. In Gulliver's Travels, the titular character goes through several extraordinary adventures. In one of his travels, Gulliver visits the flying land of Laputa. It's there that Swift's fictional scientists have discovered that Mars has 2 moons. In real life, this wouldn't be observed until 1877 by American astronomer Asaph Hall. He discovered Phobos and Deimos, the 2 Martian satellites. Not only had Swift predicted their existence a century and a half earlier, but he'd also gotten their orbit and proximity fairly accurate. In honor of the writer, Hall named a crater on Deimos after him. The only other named feature on Deimos is Voltaire's crater. French satirist Voltaire had also predicted that Mars had 2 moons in a short story from 1752.
Before we move on, official They Will Kill You merchandise is now available at theywillkillyou.com. It's out of this world.
Number 1. People who predicted their own deaths. One common feature of stories involving prediction is a person's ability to foresee their own death. Historically, this seems to have happened in several cases. President Abraham Lincoln reportedly dreamed that he'd been assassinated just a few days before it actually happened. American writer Mark Twain was born on November 30th, 1835, when Halley's Comet was visible from Earth. Twain said in 1909 that he expected to die when the comet would be once again visible in 1910. He felt a connection to the celestial object, describing it and himself as 2 unaccountable freaks. Twain believed that they'd come in the world together and had to go out together. Halley's Comet made its appearance on April 20th, 1910. The very next day, Mark Twain died of a heart attack. Basketball legend Pistol Pete Maravich once claimed in an interview that he didn't want to play in the NBA for 10 years and then die of a heart attack at age 40. His words would prove prophetic. He would only play professional basketball for 10 years. Then during a pickup game, he suffered a fatal heart attack. Maravich had been suffering from an undetected heart defect and was 40 years old at the time of his death. Thanks for watching. Would you go on the newly built replica of the Titanic that is scheduled to first sail in 2020? Or would you be too afraid that the ship is doomed? Let us know in the comments section below.